Hi again. Walter Rauschenbusch, page 325 of Christianity and the Social Crisis. This chapter entitled The Church and the Social Movement. Law is unspeakably precious. Order is the daughter of heaven. Yet in practice, law and order are on the side of those in possession. The men who are out can get in only through the disturbance of the order now prevailing. Those who in the past cried for law and order at any cost have throttled many a newborn child of justice. The aristocracy and bureaucracy of Russia are all for law and order. For law and order mean the old law and their own order. When the German peasants in 1525, betrayed and murdered by their aristocratic enemies who scorned to keep faith with the canaille, used violence in turn, Luther lost all his former faint sympathy with their fair demands and called for order at any price. He said that they had forfeited all rights and summoned the forces of order to kill them as one would kill a mad dog. They did it. The princes and barons, assured that they were not only protecting their class interest, but serving God in the bargain, slaughtered probably 100,000, devastated entire districts, broke the backbone of the German peasantry, and retarded the emancipation of a great and worthy class by centuries. It was a very righteous impulse with Luther, and yet we count it one of the darkest stains on his life. That class which he opposed in the blind agony of its emancipation is now rising to intelligence and power, and is forgetting all his great merits for this sin committed against the common people. When violence was used during the Brooklyn streetcar strike of 1895, an eminent minister of that city used words that sounded strangely like Luther's fearful invective. If clubs will not do, then bayonets. If bayonets will not do, then lead. If bullets will not do, then Gatling guns. Unquote. He said he was willing to have the churches turned into hospitals to see order maintained. Freedom, too, is a holy word. The right to labor is one of the fundamental rights of man. But the cry, the right to work, in our country has been raised mainly by the employers on behalf of those who were willing to help them in breaking down the resistance of organized labor. Their interest seems to be more in the right to be worked for than, let's read that again, their interest seems to be more in the right to be worked for than in the right to work. Strike breaking is now a highly organized business, and those who do it rank morally with the mercenaries kept by princes to subdue their people. For those workmen who, under the pressure of need, break away from the coherence of their class and take the job which is calling for them, the situation is indeed terrible. The scab may be actuated by fine motives. He may feel loyalty to the employer whose bread he has long eaten. He may be driven by the hunger and sickness of his family to provide bread for them at any cost. Or he may disapprove of this strike or of labor unions in general, but he breaks down the solidarity of his class, and his class will judge him by that standard alone. There has never been a social class or group which has not punished, to the best of its ability, anyone who betrayed the interests of the class, and which did not visit bitterer condemnation on those actions which endangered its safety than on any others. A boy may steal apples and retain his moral standing with the other boys, but he must not tell on a fellow. A cowboy could sin all around the compass with impunity, but if he stole a horse, he was hung. The safety of his class depended on the security of their horses. Militarism winks at gambling and lewdness, but strikes relentlessly at insubordination. The governing powers of Russia have been lenient on many things, but they tolerated no opinions which undermined the moral foundations of the autocracy. While the clerical hierarchy was dominant, it punished the schismatic and heretic, for he was the scab and blackleg of the church. Each class regards the punishment visited on its traitors as just and natural, but regards with horror the methods or the class of offenses punished in opposing class and its methods of getting even with its traitors. These observations have held true throughout human history and have been deeply influential in the gradual formation of customary and statutory law. The working class is now engaged in a great historic class struggle, which is becoming ever more conscious and bitter. Their labor is all they have. Individually, they are helpless. Their only hope for wresting better wages and conditions from the other side is in union of action. With infinite effort, with sacrifice of time, money, and chances of self-advancement, they create organizations which obey discipline and act together. Under certain circumstances, anyone breaking away from their discipline may secure exceptional terms for himself, but he does so at the expense of all the efforts which the union has put forth. Others are laboriously erecting a dam to raise the water level so that all may irrigate their fields and raise better crops. This man breaks through the dam to get an immediate supply for his own field. If we expect the working class to be patient with those who sell out the interest of their class for personal advantage and lend themselves as tools to those who seek to undermine the fighting force of the organization, we demand of one of the lowest groups of society a moral magnanimity and breadth of view which no other group has ever shown. The great sociologist Schaeffle, who was by no means a radical, said, "There is nothing more brutal than a moneyed aristocracy in persecuting those who dispute its dominion." End of quote. The philosophy of all class movements is summed up in Kipling's Jungle Law. Now this is the law of the jungle, as old as and as true as the sky. And the wolf that shall keep it may prosper, but the wolf that shall break it must die. As the creeper that girdles the tree trunk, the law runneth forward and back. For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. Now these are the laws of the jungle, and many and mighty they are, or rather are they, but the head and the hoof of the law and the haunch of the hump is obey. Read that last line again, it's ingenious. Now, these are the laws of the jungle, and many and mighty are they, but the head and the hoof of the law and the haunch and the hump is obey. Rudyard Kipling. I'll put in a link to Walter Brueggemann's discussion of a classic case of the aristocracy doing its thing in the Old Testament, Naboth's vineyard. How was Israel protected against the abuses of aristocracy and unlimited power? I think the illustration of Naboth and King Ahab is a classic example of what can happen if we ignore even the laws of God that we view to be insignificant. In this case, it was the inheritance and the Jubilee system, which, as far as we can tell, Israel never kept, but nevertheless is right there in the book of Leviticus for us all to compare ourselves against when it comes to how to treat our neighbor and how to guarantee a relative equality.